And we're recording and live now on YouTube.
Great. Welcome, everyone. This is council meeting number 7, Monday, February 8th at 7 p.m. Of course, we're holding this meeting virtually during COVID times, which are not surprising. And this is actually a continuation of our 2021 budget meeting. We dealt with operating last Tuesday, which I believe was February 2nd. And we took a pause after an extensive discussion on the operating budget, which we passed, to in fact deal with the capital budget this evening. So that is primarily the focus for this evening's meeting. I'm pleased to obviously call the meeting to order, and I'm going to look to Ms. Babcock-Cormier to read our, oh, I see it here actually, Ms. Babcock-Cormier, I believe the recommendation that is on my screen is that the revised special meeting of council agenda dated February 8th be approved as presented, save and except for the closed session, which was canceled and did not occur. Council colleagues looking for a mover and a seconder, please. I see Deputy Mayor and Councillor Barkley, thank you very much. I'll call the question on the revised agenda. All in favor, please just raise your hands. Thank you. That motion passes. Disclosures of interest, any disclosures of interest this evening, colleagues, in regards to perceived or real financial benefit or loss? Seeing that, I'll move on. Obviously, the closed session did not occur. It was canceled. So we are going to presentations and delegations. And before going to Mr. Brookman, who is our Director of Finance and Treasurer, I will ask Mr. Dyke if he has any opening comments to situate the discussion around tonight's capital budget.
Thank you, Worship. Just a short introduction. As you did state, this is a continuation of the budget discussion from last week, only pertaining to the capital budget based on what we call the tax-based support of the capital budget that does not include water and sewer piece. The water and sewer capital budget was approved last week, along with the municipal operating budget. Mr. Brookman will walk you through briefly his presentation on the capital aspects, and then we have the directors here to answer any specific questions you may have on the projects that are on the list.
Excellent. And if I, of course, could thank Mr. Dyke and your senior management team that I think have worked very cohesively to present tonight's capital budget. We certainly appreciate all of the labor and contemplation that went into this staff generated budget, and look forward to discussion. So with that, I will turn it over to Mr. Brookman then.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. We'll, as a continuation, we'll just jump right into the presentation. I'll just quickly walk you through what the plan is, and then we'll get started. So we are at the budgeted draft capital expense portion of our review. Just as a reminder, we are funded by this portion of the budget is funded by taxation reserves, development charges, grants, and debt financing. Next slide. So I'm going to walk you quickly through our capital costs as an overview to just give yourselves and the public a quick review of what we have planned for 2021. Capital expenditures. Sorry,
Brad, just to excuse. I just want to let the public know that you are on page 33 of the presentation, just so they know. Okay.
Yep. Thank you. And so I'll walk you through just the general overview of what the capital costs are by department and by project category. And then we have another 4 slides that are going to detail out what those capital projects are. For those slides, I will introduce a slide, and if you have detailed questions, I will bring in the director of that department to speak in more detail to those planned capital costs. So for starters, we have $10 million, just under $10 million planned for 2021. Public Works is the lion's share of that, and a good chunk of that is County Road 43, as everybody knows. Parks and Recreation is the next tranche. It's quite a bit less at just over $1 million. The North Grenville Municipal Center building is just under $1 million, and about half of that is for lighting. Emergency and protective services is $643,000, and that's primarily one project, which is to replace one of the tankers. And then our others. So the others will be EPS, and the others will be in the last slide of the presentation. By category, we've got about $4.6 million in roads. We have carryover projects of $2.8 million. For those of you who have attended our former presentations, that's projects that were planned for 2020 that due to COVID were delayed for a number of reasons. So we are planning to move those forward in 2021. Parkland rehabilitation is $750,000. We have fleet and equipments, which is our trucks and other equipment required to keep the municipality running. Buildings, that's our main expansion, and anything that really increases the capital life of the capital buildings. Other capital projects of just under $170,000. Streetlights, parks, and sidewalks, which make up the balance of the $10 million that is planned. So that's the summary. You can see here clearly where we're putting the majority of our money, which is to finish what we started last year, and a good portion of our budget going to roads. Next slide. To fund those capital projects, we have five primary funding sources. Our current year taxation accounts for 43% of the funding for this year's projects. We're planning to take just over $3 million of reserves to move those projects forward. Development charges are 21%, or just over $2 million. Development charges, again, as a reminder, are those charges that are set aside for growth projects. So as we grow the community, we need to start putting money into that growth. And when we do so, we pull from our development charges fund. Grants funding of just over $500,000. And for this year, we have external debt of 0%. So 2021 will be a year where we don't have to go into debt financing for the operating portion of the budget. So that's a good sign for us. That means that we have enough money available to move things forward for this year's projects. That doesn't necessarily mean that we don't want to use debt in the future. It just means at this point in time, we have sufficient taxation reserves, development charges, and grants to fund everything that we have for 2021. Next slide. So Public Works is our first and primary project lead. So we have a lot of projects on the go with Public Works. They are our biggest spender. This is one of 2 pages. So I'll just quickly walk through what our carryover projects are, and then by category where we plan to spend our money. I won't go into too much detail, as council can see the numbers here. I will just touch on the higher dollar value projects. So the first carryover project, as council is aware and our public is aware, is the Wellington Road project that came in 2020 well above budget. So we decided to delay that, reassess what we needed in terms of funding for the Wellington Road project, and have it planned for 2021. So that's just over $1 million. And then, of course, you need design and contract administration to make sure that capital project moves forward. That's another $100,000. And then the next largest carryover project was the old CP pedestrian trail. I just want to highlight that this is not improving the trail itself, but the infrastructure underneath it, which is required to make sure that it stays up to standards. Under fleet and equipment, we have one large vehicle, which is the International Triaxle that we are planning to purchase. That's $332,000, and some change. That's our largest purchase for the year, and then some vehicles that are required for us to maintain this large municipality. Buildings, there's some very small capital projects that I won't go into in detail, but they total $38,805. Projects for sidewalks are not specified here, but we have rehabilitation and the concession road Prescott to the rail trail are our largest projects there. And then the largest project under streetlights is the Prescott streetlight replacement is $150,000. Next slide.
Brad, maybe I'll stop you there.
Sure.
Before we move on to roads, I'm just going to check with my council colleagues. Council colleagues, would you, my sense is that we've got 2 sections to the capital projects proposals under Public Works. Would you like to hear the whole presentation, or would you like to provide comment now on slide 1 and then we'll go to slide 2? Any comments at this stage, council colleagues?
None from me.
I do.
Okay, so I have Councillor Barkley and Deputy Mayor, and I too have a comment. So I'll start with Councillor O'Sullivan then.
Okay. Thank you, Nancy. My question is about the sidewalks and whether or not we have talked about altering any of the priorities for those projects, because I see that the concession road to the rail trail is not as big a priority as I would say that maybe we should do a multi-use path to connect along Lydia between Maley and George Street, because that is like a direct route to the crosswalk on 43 for students going to St. Mike's, or anybody going to the municipal center, or anyone going to the Shoppers Drug Mart Mall. Even I realized that there was a desire to maybe put a sidewalk straight down Lydia. However, that would connect the municipal center right to Curry Park, but I don't see that in the foreseeable future. And I'm just wondering if we could do something about that, even if it was just a temporary multi-use path for a few years until a sidewalk all the way down is done. So that's one of my concerns. And the other one is a link to from the rail trail to County Road 19 at Ryan's Well Road, so that there's a way for people using the rail trail to get over to Colonnade Mall, because a great number of people who come down that trail, that's where they're going. And again, even if that was a temporary solution in the short term, that would be made more permanently once there's definite plans for the land use at that corner. Those are my 2 comments. Thank you.
So if I may back up the slide, just so that we're all looking at the correct slide.
Thank you, Mr. Brookman. So just to respond to Councillor O'Sullivan, of course, you'll be aware, Councillor O'Sullivan, that I did have a quick chat with Ms. Dunlop to establish whether or not there was the capacity to swap out the multi-use pathway. Should council have that appetite for some higher needs or perceived, more urgent projects. And to that end, Director Dunlop had indicated that George Street was also foreseen to have a sidewalk established there owing to another major construction project due to the Bayfield expansion. So there have been discussions with Director Dunlop about potentially swapping out the multi-use pathway and replacing it with a Lydia connector, Lydia North, as you've suggested, as well as a sidewalk where one is perhaps more urgently required in the view of council. You've added that third element, which is the connector to County Road 19, and I think we should have Director Dunlop speak to that directly. I'm sure she's on this call. And then I just want to recognize council colleagues who are waiting, and I believe that was the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Barkley. Do I have that right? Did I miss anybody? Okay, so Director Dunlop, you're not on my screen. I assume you're in the virtual room somewhere.
I am here.
To that. Thank you.
Yes. So based on some anticipated questions, I did do a quick costing in regards to the Lydia Street link, which would be a multi-use paved path between George and Millie, understanding that there are no sidewalks to or from that location. Should it be council's wish to switch or remove the multi-use path concession road project, Lydia is estimated at between $10,000 and $15,000. I do not have a costing for the rail trail to Ryan's Well, as the municipality does not own any land there at the moment. So that would take a little more work than just construction and tenders. The other item which we discussed was the George Street sidewalk from Oxford to Pine Hill. It was anticipated to be a 2022 project, and it was estimated at a little over $66,000. So between the two, the 66 and the roughly 15, it would be an increase of about $8,000 that can be accommodated within the sidewalk rehab project of $50,000. So there are my comments. I'm sure there'll be other questions.
Okay. So I think that's helpful. And I'll go to others on the speakers list, and Councillor Sullivan, if you'd like to follow up, please do so after I've heard from others. So I think I've got the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Barkley.
Yep. Okay. Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is a question for Brad, really, and it's not related to the sidewalks or anything right now. I don't know if we are going to keep moving on, or do you want to make, or do you want comments, Madam Mayor, on the sidewalk?
No, I'll accept general questions at this point.
Okay.
We are speaking to this slide, however, not the next one. So let's stay on this slide for now. Thank you.
Okay, so my question to Brad, just a couple of quick ones here. First off is, I know we had a large amount of carryover from last year. I'm not sure exactly what we accomplished, meaning I don't know the numbers. I know we did a lot, but going forward, we're going to have a carryover plus of a large number of other items. Does this, would this be, it's in the 10 million range, does that compare to, say, 2019? In those areas, or are we doing more or less going forward 2021? I feel like we're doing more, and I'm just wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yes, so I can answer that question, not with specifics around the 2020 budget, but more around how we approach the capital projects. We looked at our capacity to execute. So when we went through the budgeting process, it wasn't a matter of are we doing more in terms of number of projects or dollar value of projects? We looked at our capability as a municipality to execute against those projects. So we put a lot of time and effort into prioritization internally to make sure that we got as much done in 2021 as we can within reason. So given the capacity that we have, we created a list. The list is certainly much longer than what is presented for 2021. But we prioritized it and said, okay, what can we get done reasonably within that time period? And once we had done that, then we came up with the numbers. So to me, it's a discussion around, we don't want to set ourselves up by saying we're going to do more or less projects in 2021. We're going to do our planning so that we can execute against the projects that we proposed moving forward. So it's not directly answering your question in terms of dollars. I would have to go back and check the dollars. I have not prepared for that. But I can tell you that what is presented here in terms of a $10 million budget is, in the opinion of the senior management team or directors of the municipality, an attainable goal.
Okay.
Perhaps I could, yep.
Sorry, just to expand on that. We are in 2021. We're still in COVID. We don't expect a lot of things to change probably for a little while. We don't know for sure. There's a lot of unknowns. I'm assuming that through the management team, you guys have had discussions on what you can do, what you can't do, especially going forward with the unknowns. So I'm assuming you're putting that or have that in consideration in your calculations of what you think you can get done if COVID continues to be a problem, to go into a third wave, that kind of thing.
Absolutely, and we can't predict the future, of course. We know that we should be up and running certainly halfway through the year is our hope. We did. We actually had quite a bit of discussion around what the impact will be from COVID. And as I mentioned in our capital discussion, we're going to present to council how we're doing against these capital projects. If there's some lag, if there's some unknown factors that come into play that are going to delay a project, we will give you plenty of lead time to understand what that impact would be.
Okay, my last question, Brad, was we mentioned the $1 million spend. It's probably on the slide just before this one, I'm guessing, on the municipal building, the lighting. And I think the number came in around 400,000 or something on the lighting.
Correct.
That's a big dollar spend. I get it, and because I'm assuming, anyways, you're going to some LED version of lighting, which I'm assuming would be a savings. I'm assuming a lot that you've done some kind of research to discover what's the return on the investment there for the 400,000, over a couple of years, 10 years. I don't know. Did that discussion come up?
It has, and it's going to be coming up when we speak to Parks and Recreation in a forthcoming slide.
Okay.
And I just wanted to ask Karen Dunlop if she had further comment. Obviously, overseeing public works and what is feasible and viable for 2021. Is there anything you have to add, Director Dunlop?
The only thing would be is that the Public Works Department, we do have a lot of carryover projects. As you know, the largest dollar value was Wellington Road because of the budget impacts. And you will see the additional fund request on the next page. The other carryover projects, a majority are life safety products or ones that are already underway, or items that we had put off from COVID, such as a couple of our fleet replacements. So we have trimmed it down to life safety or asset management based projects within the 2021 year.
Okay, I'll go to Councillor Barclay, who's been patiently waiting and is the liaison for Public Works.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. Just a comment and then a question. Getting back to the sidewalk section of the budget, the Public Works budget. Both Parks, Rec and Culture and Public Works come up with a priority list. And there is a rationale for the concession road Prescott to Rail Trail, but I don't think it's as powerful a rationale as what's been mentioned so far. And that's the connectivity on George Street and that short section on the vacant lot, I'll call it, on Lydia Street. The other alternative mentioned was the connecting Ryan's Well and the rail trail. I think that's somewhat complicated in a lack of easement that we have for that. So I think of the three options mentioned for myself, the Lydia Street, the short section connecting along Lydia, or what would have been the extension of Lydia, and the George Street sidewalk would be my preference if we were going to reallocate that line item of 72,000. Just a question for Director Dunlop. Under the carryover projects, engineering and construction standards update, is that the Public Works companion piece to the development guidelines piece that planning is working on?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Okay.
That's it. Thanks.
Thanks. Director Dunlop, any comment there? Okay. Councillor Strachan, anything to add? No, I'm good. Thank you very much. Oh, you're muted. Not audible. Okay. So, Director Dunlop, I think you're hearing some emergent consensus to swap out the multi-use pathway that was proposed for George Street and a four-season pathway on Lydia North. So I believe I don't hear any objections to that, and I concur with other comments that were made this evening that for circumstantial reasons around how those particular streets are used or areas are used, that the alternatives to the multi-use pathway are more urgent. So I don't think you need any more direction than that, but I'll check with Mr. Dyke. Are we good to redirect those funds, Mr. Dyke?
We will make note of the change by council, and once at the end, when council approves a budget, they will have changed the amendments as that come up as we go through the presentation.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Ms. Dunlop, just very quickly, I wondered if you could speak to the sidewalk rehab project in a general sense so that the members of the community understand what's going on there. And if you could just refresh us very quickly on the old CP rail pedestrian trail. Of course, it's a $350,000 spend, which isn't insignificant in our community. And I think it would be helpful for anyone watching or listening to better appreciate what's happening there. That would be most appreciated.
Certainly. The $50,000 sidewalk rehab project is a continuation of the council's direction in regards to making sure that our existing sidewalks within the urban core, as well as some of the hamlets, are in very good condition. We did an assessment, a third-party assessment of the sidewalks about 2 years ago, came up with a deficiency list. Last year, there was $150,000 spent on the rehab. For over $400,000 worth of deficiencies. Because we do a lot of that work in-house, we cut down over 75% of the deficiencies listed. So this year, with the resources in-house, we will do another $50,000 towards those identified deficiencies. In addition, we will also complete the third-party inspection and get a deficiency report updated. The other project you mentioned is the Structure 1313 Old CP Rail Pedestrian Trail. That is the old train bridge or box culvert that is just west of Hagen, underneath the rail trail. It is a structural replacement due to a structural inspection as required by the province every other year. It's been identified as having some structural deficiencies, so we're required to do those replacements. This is an expensive proposition for a pedestrian trail, but it is there is a dual fiber optic and a high pressure gas line that must be supported. So the underground infrastructure, as well as the creek, which is served by this culvert, need to be accommodated. So it's an expensive proposition for a pedestrian trail, but a necessary one from a structural component.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll go to Councillor O'Sullivan now. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Director Dunlop, I just wanted to confirm that this culvert replacement or reconstruction or whatever the work is going to be done on that will include some kind of guardrails along the rail trail, because it's currently, the state it's in right now is a big safety hazard with the significant drop off right into the creek and over the concrete culvert that's down there. So I really hope that will be done sooner than later, because I think the fencing or guardrails are really urgently needed.
It will actually be a combination of two projects. We're looking at a wider structure so that we can smooth out some of those side slopes over the water body. And we're looking at a fencing product, be it a cedar rail, not necessarily the metal guardrail that you would expect on a road, but something a little more pedestrian friendly as part of the Wellington Road project.
And would you have a timeline, Director Dunlop, for that particular effort?
The rail trail, no construction for the culvert can start until July 1st based on the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority regulations for fish spawning within our area.
And guardrails or the protective barriers, if you will?
They will not be up until next fall.
Okay. Deputy Mayor.
Quick question for you, Director Dunlop. And since we're talking railings, it kind of reminded me that the culvert in the Tempo subdivision where the water reservoir is, there's that concrete structure that didn't have a railing. I don't know if it does now, or I thought it just came to my mind. Have we ever addressed that as a safety issue yet? Do you know?
We had been working with the developer. We have not assumed those assets into the municipal network as of yet. I know that the engineering division were working with the developer to see if they would install it, even though it was not part of the original plan. So if we cannot convince them, we will be doing it ourselves in-house.
Okay, thank you.
Just quickly, Director Dunlop, when we're looking at things like improving or mitigating speed, introducing traffic calming measures, I just can't remember. Are those part of operating? I don't see them captured in capital, but I may be mistaken. You know, as we anticipate some of those reports coming back to council, where would the budget envelope be to accommodate something like a trial run with photo radar, or a speed bump or hump, or, you know, whatever the mechanism might be?
There are some reserves that are put away for traffic calming measures, but you can also see on this page traffic control concession. There is 10,500 left over to bump up some of the recommendations from that traffic calming report, such as some additional paintings. We do have the centerline delineators, the PXO, as well as the flashing sign on that specific road. So between those two, we should be all right for this year. Mind you, we do not know how much photo radar is going to cost. So until we get our transportation policy report back, we will then address council at that time.
Mr. Dyke?
If I might add, Your Worship, to Director Dunlop's comments, LAS through AMO is actually running a pilot program for photo radar in school zones that we are currently exploring as to see the feasibility for applying for that program as well.
So you mean there could be external funding? Is that what I'm hearing?
Funding, that's correct.
Okay. And I know, Ms. Dunlop, you and I were on a call in regards to Clothier Street, where obviously there are significant concerns remaining, and we haven't completed that, I think, traffic calming, right, set of protocols, and there might be new ones introduced once conversations happen with the school and the counties. What's your sense of our capacity to respond, given what I think are continued significant concerns about the safety of that particular stretch of Clothier?
So we have coordinated a meeting with many of the partners for actually the end of the month to put together a feasibility of what needs to be completed, and it will be a partnership project. And I hope that we have willing partners. So that will be a study that's done so that we can proceed with any capital works such as shoulder widening, signs, and traffic calming, but it will be in conjunction with the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville, as well as the school board.
Okay, any other comments, colleagues, on this first slide? Seeing none, Ms. Dunlop, do you want to walk us through the proposed roads? Obviously, this is your portfolio. Is there anything you'd like to say about the roads that are proposed? And you were on mute, Ms. Dunlop.
Sometimes it's better that way, but yes, so the list that you have in front of you, you have a list of 18 different locations, of which 17 are roads. One is actually a bridge study. I can walk from top to bottom very quickly. So we all know the expansion of County Road 43. It's estimated the 2021 cash flow management will be a little over $2.6 million for the municipal share. The Wellington Road 500,000 is the addition to what we hope will be the tendered value for the completion of the Wellington Road infrastructure and road and pedestrian project. We have one gravel rebuild proposed for 2021, which is Bolton Road from the tracks to Craig Road. Crozier Road, yes, sorry.
Heather, can you advance one slide to show the roads? Thank you.
So I was on Crozier Road, Lindsay to Beach for a pavement overlay. That's an asset management product. Tompkins, County Road 44 to Town Line, based on the gravel rebuild. It's to provide a surface treatment. Same with the next product, which is Bolton Road, County Road 43 to the tracks, a surface treatment based on the gravel rebuild that was completed in 2020. Sanderson Road, County Road 18 to Bolton, as a preventative asset management treatment. We're proposing a preventative overlay. Pelton Road, County Road 22 to Town Line did receive a surface treatment. It has been proven that if you put a slurry seal over the surface treatment, you can extend its useful life. Scotch Line Road West, Bolton to Donahue, was rebuilt in 2020. So we are proposing to hard surface with a surface treatment application. Lateral Road was surface treated in 2020, and we are proposing for, again, to extend its useful life, a slurry seal. Van Buren Street from County Road 43 to French Settlement requires some asphalt rehab through a pavement overlay. About 500 meters of Irishtown Road, which is in front of a couple quarries, requires an asset management pavement overlay. Stone Road, County Road 18 to Patterson Corners requires a preventative overlay slurry to try to maintain the surface treatment in reasonable condition. Then the next two are various locations for short runs of overlays and urban hot patch. The next two are on Town Line, and they run from Hess to Taylor and Hess to Tompkins. They're to do the surface treatment over 2 sections of gravel rebuild roads. Lindsay Road for a section is to provide a preventative overlay slurry on the full length of Lindsay Road. Boundary Road between Arcand and French Settlement. This is an area that was done as a partnership for surface treatment, is to get an overlay slurry, which is basically a 1 layer of surface treatment. And then the last one is the Denison Road Bridge Study in anticipation of future work in 2022 or 2023. That's the value for the structure assessment to be completed by a structural engineer. And that completes the list.
Thank you. Okay, colleagues, any questions? I see Deputy Mayor. Thanks. And Councillor Barkley.
Just a question on, not that it's a big spend, but Irishtown Road. You mentioned it's in front of that quarry. I see I'm looking at the map, I see the quarries are quite large. And this comment came up for, geez, what's the other road on?
Bennett Road?
Bennett Road, yes. There was talk on Bennett Road too that, again, concerns that these quarries cause a lot of damage to the roads and are costly. Do we get any compensation for, I know the quarries pay something to somehow, but is there any way this road cost from these large projects, their big trucks and whatnot, are offsetting the cost to the taxpayer?
The answer is yes and no. So we do get a very small royalty from every ton that is pulled out of the ground on an annual basis, but it only works out to about 6 cents a ton. The average value can range anywhere from $36,000 to $56,000 per year based on all the quarries across North Grenville. So although they do pay into our revenue, it does not cover the costs of some of the breakdowns of the roads.
That is sobering that we assume infrastructure costs for quarries that are, providing no meaningful tax contribution to our municipality. Are we missing something here, Director Dunlop?
Unfortunately, it is something that is set from a high, the ARA or the Aggregate Resources Act sets what the royalty is per year. The upper tier gets a certain value, we get a certain value, and it's set by higher levels of government.
Indeed. Deputy Mayor, sorry.
No, it's okay. They're paying that fee, but I'm assuming they also pay a property tax for those properties, do they not?
I would have to defer to the Director of Finance.
That would depend on their location. So if they're located within the municipality, yes, they would. If they're located elsewhere, then no, there would be no flow-through.
I'm speaking of the ones that are within North Grenville, of course. Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Barkley, please.
The Deputy Mayor read my mind and asked my question about Irishtown, and I think got a bit of an answer. Well, sorry, not to characterize it as a bit of an answer, but we got the answer we were looking for. The only thing I would add is that I guess the road came before the quarry. So when people open up a pit for quarrying, there's no requirement that we have for them to contribute to the reinforcement of the road due to their heavy vehicles. I suspect I'm answering the question myself, but just for confirmation.
That would have to be set into their site plans when they when the quarry is established, and I am not aware of any within the municipality itself that clause has been received and approved by the Aggregate Resources Act.
Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Dunlop, just because of the interest around County Road 43, if you could just spell out the 2.6 million in terms of the municipality's contribution at this early stage, I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
So the value that you see before you is based on the cash flow management provided by the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville for what they believe they will accomplish in 2021. The schedule has yet to be confirmed and the actual work plan laid out, because traffic management and communication will be the biggest impact to our residents and businesses within North Grenville. So the first phase is anticipated to be utility relocations and the first phase of the bridge, which is the 2 lanes of a new 4-lane bridge to be south of the existing bridge. So that would be on the Kemple retirement side, Kemple retirement living side of the existing bridge. So that is hopefully something that we will see in 2021. But as I said, we do not have the schedule as of yet.
Okay, but and our share, of course, as I understand it, is some of the underground or all of the underground, as well as some of the aesthetic features, as well as pedestrian pathways.
Pedestrian pathways, aesthetics, water and sewer underground, and illumination, and of course the beautification of the corridor.
Thank you. All right, council colleagues, you've heard the explanation from Ms. Dunlop on the proposed roads. Any final comments before we move on? Seeing none, I'd like to move on then. Thank you. Again, Mr. Brookman, defer to you, but I think we do want to hear from the directors themselves. So I don't know how you want to manage the overview of the next slide, which I think is Parks and Rec.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's actually a great idea. What I'll do is I'll just bring us to the next slide, and then I'll hand it over to our Director of Parks and Recreation.
Thanks.
So our next slide is summarized here, and we have our carryover projects, and I will hand it over to Mark to walk you through each one of the projects.
Great, thank you, Brad. So the carryover projects from 2020, theater overflow chairs. So those are the chairs that we would set out basically where council sits during council meetings. So when we have large audiences, we set out extra chairs there for the audience. So those chairs are in badly need of replacement. Floor scrubber and sweep. The floor scrubber and sweeper actually was is no longer a carryover. We do now have the new floor scrubber and sweeper. Parkland rehabilitation, it's for the Riverside Park project. So the 15,000 from the budget last year was money put in to do an initial feasibility study. We have entered into an agreement with WSP recently to conclude or to take on the feasibility study. And the feasibility study really is just to study the various options and recommended approach for the probable cost of the location of the new park features and associated works, and also to develop building feasibility programming and costs for the building, site servicing, all building amenities, and to meet applicable building code requirements. We suspect that this part of this project will begin in early March and should hopefully take no longer than a month and a half to complete at the most. And once this feasibility study is completed, it will give us the basis to move forward with a detailed design and construction for the project. It is Parks and Recreation's plan to have an outdoor pool program this summer. So we really don't see any construction beginning until the fall once the pool program is over. But we should have everything in place ready to go in the fall. In terms of the dollars, the 750,000, that number came from the grant that we applied for back in the fall of 2019, the provincial funding that we unfortunately weren't successful at. And those were Class D estimates that were prepared by WSP for the purposes of the grant. So the dollars assigned to this project came from that, from those estimates. I can't say at this point until we go through the feasibility study and get some probable costs, whether how much of the 750 we'll actually spend this year, but that's the number we've got in the budget to move forward with that project.
Mark, do you have a breakdown on that 750 though? Are we going to hear that today?
I don't have a breakdown on the 750, Deputy Mayor. Certainly once the feasibility study is over, that breakdown will be, I'll be able to explain it at that point. That's what we're trying to do with the feasibility study is get those numbers and more concrete numbers and in more detail.
Mr. Guy, if I might though, my understanding is that the priority elements for Riverside Park in terms of this first 750 envelope are a dual purpose ice pad, splash pad, as well as an entirely rehabilitated building to make it fully accessible as well as multi-season. Is that a correct characterization of what you see coming down the pipe?
Yes. I envision the current building, pool building there, not a whole lot of changes being made there. Would be more a new building that would be connected to the existing building.
Okay.
But you're absolutely right. That's what we're anticipating. This work will be for a fully functioned splash pad outdoor rink combination, unless through the feasibility study, they're going to provide us with more than one option. One of the other options might be to do two separate facilities, but also, and then the other component would be the building itself that would serve the entire park in terms of change rooms and washrooms, not just the users of the new splash pad ice rink. Obviously it would be for that, but anybody using the park for whatever purposes would have access. It's always been something that's been brought up that people don't have access to washrooms when they're at the building, and certainly at during special events times it becomes a bit of an issue as well.
I see Councillor Strapian, go ahead.
Thank you, Director Guy. I mean, I think that the changes at Riverside Park will be very welcome. Certainly splash pad and rink and so on. New building, it's all fantastic. Is there any plan to have any sort of pavilion or anything like that put in place to offer some shade? I know I've spent many very hot days poolside when my kids have been participating in lessons or anything of the like, and there's no place to sit there that is actually outside of away from the sunlight. And I know it's been a want of a lot of families to have some shade offered, like many other places with outdoor pools have. So I'm just wondering if that has been thought about as part of the plan.
Thanks for the question, Councillor Strakian. Certainly it's been debated. Initially there was a lot of interest in a pavilion style. When we did the update to the Riverside Park plan as I mentioned, in the fall of 19, there was some heavy interest from the Home Builders Association to look at a partnership in terms of constructing an amphitheater as opposed to a pavilion, something that could be used for outdoor concerts, theater in the park type of thing. The Recreation Department understands the need for some shades, certainly in and around the pool area. We've had to take down many trees there over the last number of years. We have planted some new trees, but obviously they take time to grow. But we're looking at other types of structures that you can buy through various companies, where it ties different sort of picnic table type structures that have shade as part of them. So we're looking at some of those options. In terms of building as I said, constructing a full-fledged pavilion, we sort of changed course a little bit in the update in terms of looking at an amphitheater as opposed to pavilion, but nothing's at this point is set in stone.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think an amphitheater sounds, sorry, I just finish off my comment quickly. Amphitheater sounds like a great multi-use kind of space, and I think that would be welcome as well. Obviously, if the shade isn't close enough to the pool area, then it kind of serves a completely different purpose. But I can appreciate that there's other solutions. It's not necessarily a pavilion that we have to land on. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I just would add that, again, as I mentioned about the amount of money we've put towards this project, if I'm trying to be optimistic, it's possible we'll be able to do a little more depending on how the costs shake out. But we'll see where those dollars take us once we have more information provided for us through the feasibility study.
Director Guy, I know too, and the mayor and I and others, councillors have discussed this, that this splash pad potential combination rink could also be outfitted with a roof potentially and become in the summer a pavilion. And of course, in the winter, it helps to keep the elements off the rink as well. So I think that's a possible option. Even in the summer, if it's a fairly large space, covered, can be used for probably a lot of things. It could be a music festival type of thing because you've got the shade. If it's not too far from the pool, it probably could be accessed with picnic tables and whatnot. But anyways, just to make sure that stays on the radar is what the end result or the design looks like. Being as multi-purpose as possible would make sense.
Yeah, good point, Deputy Mayor. And I think I will certainly bring that up. I'll make note of that. I think if we were looking to sort of have that type of thing happen in the summer, we would have to look at, a standalone type of potential splash pad if we wanted to look at turning an outdoor rink into a bit of a pavilion in the summertime, unless one end of it is a shade structure and the other end is the splash pad component. There's lots of different ideas, and I think that's the whole, that's the basis for doing the feasibility study, is to get some of those questions answered.
Sure, and I think we've understood that there is a possibility of partnership, right, with some of our community business leaders. So something to keep in mind. I do want to remind you, Mr. Guy, I know and the rest of council actually, that I think the intent behind a dual purpose splash pad ice pad was to use the splash pad underworks to extend the life of a ice pad so that it could go beyond sort of just the seasonal variations in temperature and provide more of a stable, long-standing outdoor ice rink experience, so that we could really extend, I think, the life of any outdoor ice structure of that sort. But that being said, it's obvious you have some work to do in terms of figuring out how to land this. But I think it's important for the community to understand where Parks and Rec is headed on this in terms of the priority amenities. And obviously, in addition to, I guess, what is an extension of the current building to render it fully accessible and for season and available to the whole park, we have the dual purpose splash pad ice pad. I understand there's an application potentially for the walking trail, the walking area that is near the back. And now you are hearing about the pavilion. So lots of interest in Riverside Park, which hasn't seen a significant investment, I believe, for many decades. So lots of work to be done. I think Councillor Sullivan.
Yes, thank you. I agree with Councillor Strachan about the pavilion and the need to have some shade there. So I think that when the detailed design is being done, if that could be included as well with the splash pad, because I think it's really important whether people are at the pool or whether they're at the splash pad whenever it's done. The pavilion that is over in Anniversary Park is not too big, but very functional. And I don't think it needs to be a huge over-the-top structure, but just a nice, solid, attractive pavilion that would provide some shade and some respite for people. So I hope that that could be included in the design. So anyway, it's all very exciting to go forward and finally get some investment into Riverside Park for the families and people that enjoy that space. So thank you, Director Guy, for all you and your department are doing to move this forward. I look forward to hearing more about the design details. Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay. Not seeing any other questions from council. Director Guy, are you keeping going? Or, oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Strachan, and I didn't see your hand.
Sorry, actually, that was going to be my question. If there is more details here, because I think we had a question about the lighting and the return on investment as well that the deputy mayor had asked.
Moving on from the slide,
Yeah.
just moving on from this particular conversation. Thanks.
Yeah, I guess I would just ask if you would prefer I go through them all, or if you just want to ask me questions on some of these projects, I'd be happy to answer them.
I think, Council, if we have questions of Mr. Guy right now, I think the Deputy Mayor, Mr. Guy, already raised a question about the return on investments for the lighting in the municipal center. So perhaps you could speak to that right away. And forgive me, Council, I forget the other one.
Sure, I can speak to that. So this is a lighting project that we would look to replace all the exterior and interior lighting in the municipal center. We have the existing lighting is still prevalent in the municipal center. Specifically, the original arena lights are all metal halide lights. They're very inefficient. We don't have the right foot candles of lighting that we need or that we should have as part of an arena at this point, just because of age. So our facility superintendent's been working with an electrical engineering firm for the last year and a half to assist us in providing us with options in terms of what kind of lighting we want to have in the facility. It is going to be an LED type of light. We're looking at a Save on Energy retrofit program grant of around $20,000. And the payback looks like it's about 5.5 years once this project is completed. So the firm we've been working with is Good Key Weedmark. They'll actually be the ones that'll be preparing the tender documents for us and then getting that tender out so that we can get this project completed.
Deputy Mayor, does that answer your question?
Yep, thank you, Director Guy.
Okay, great.
Welcome.
I think this is being commonly done across municipalities in Ontario, right? The LED lighting obviously comes with tremendous efficiencies and is, I think, an important effort, wherever it can be made.
Yeah, a lot of arenas have gone to the LED lighting.
Yep. Okay. I'm sorry, I forget the other question, council colleagues. I'll go to Councillor Strachan.
And just I'll just mention too that the this entire project can be funded through the North Grenville Municipal Center Reserve Fund.
Thank you. Thanks for flagging that. Okay, Councillor Strachan, please.
Yeah, onto a different topic. The new reception area at the municipal center, is this connected to the changes that have been brought about due to COVID and the workflow? Is that what we're talking about there? Yes,
that is correct, Councillor Strachan. Based on, the reception area was moved to the first floor due to COVID. We see some efficiencies that can be obtained by making it into a permanent reception area in terms of access to the public and a little bit less access to staff if it's not required. So that is why this project has come forward and is in part of the budget.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Okay, I've got Councillor Barclay, Councillor O'Sullivan, and I'm going to put myself on the list. Thank you. Councillor Barclay, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you very much. Back to the carryover projects, Director Guy. I note happily that the Maplewood Hall project, the rehab project, is back on our list. That's obviously based on our asset management of the buildings that we own, and certainly through the community asks and the extension of Wi-Fi to Maplewood Hall, we're going to see a lot more utility But I'm curious about Oxford-on-Rideau Township Hall and the asset management there. Is there anything critical that we need to do to keep that building from deteriorating? And is that something we can look for a line item in, say, the 2022 budget?
Thanks for the question, Councillor Barkley. We did look at all of the facilities, and based on the asset management plan, right now we have some dollars, significant amount of dollars earmarked for that facility in 2023, I believe, to do some major restoration work. Again, the building is, I mean, we're maintaining it. There is a budget there. It's not that we're not, we've turned a blind eye to it. We do regular maintenance on that building and check the building to make sure that we're not getting into any serious issues with it. A number of years ago, we decided not to run the electricity in the winter months. That has proven to be, we haven't seen any issues with that, and we'll move forward with that. The awnings at the front and the back of the buildings, there was a recommendation that they should be removed. I think we did have dollars in the budget last year to get rid of the front one, the front of the awning of the building, but it didn't get finished. I think that's the one thing we probably will try and complete this year. And as I said, we've looked at 2023 just based on the asset management plan and a number of other facilities and projects that we have, that would be, a good time to look into that building. And I think the other part of that too, pushing it till then, was hoping that through some discussions that there could be, some decisions made on the, what the building's going to become, and then it makes it a lot easier to determine what needs to be repaired, or especially on the inside of it. The outside's a little bit more, it's in your face what you have to do with it in terms of repointing and making sure the roof is repaired and whatnot. But the inside of the facility makes it a little bit more difficult when you don't know what the end goal is going to be for the building.
Understood. So the maintenance of that building, I'd find that in the operations budget somewhere, or maybe later I could talk to you about what we have.
Yeah, there is a line item in the operations budget for that particular building.
Okay. Just a final comment in that the former director of planning came to the Heritage Advisory Committee and talked about rehabilitating that front portico rather than taking it away. And I know it's a later addition. It wasn't as 150 years ago, it wasn't built with a portico in mind, but there was some talk, and I believe staff and planning have some drawings or some pictures of what that rehabilitation might look at. So any work on that building, and I'm talking about the Township Hall, I'm sure plans would go in front of the Heritage Advisory Committee, given that it's a National Historic Site. So I look forward to that conversation as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. Just a couple of questions for Director Guy and clarification for anyone listening. For the arena railings, that's the carryover project. I understand that they were approved last year and they're going to go forward, which is great because I think it's an important safety issue, although sadly nobody's allowed in there right now. But just to clarify regarding seating in the arena, that was going to be a project that was coming through the Kemptville 73s. Is that correct? And is that still on the back burner, as we say, for now? That's one question.
Thanks, Councillor Sullivan. Yes, we're still in contact with the Kemptville 73s Hockey Club over the seating. I think they are not making any big decisions at this point, just based on the fact that they haven't been able to have a hockey season this year. So some of the revenue they draw from game tickets hasn't been there. So it's still on their radar, and I think it's still an interest of theirs. But as you said, it's on the back burner at this point.
Okay. Thank you. That was just to clarify for anyone listening. because I think we had hoped that both the railings and seats would be there this year. Second question is the 9 bleachers, where are they going to be? Are they between Riverside Park and South Gore Park, or where are they for?
Various parks, but yeah, those 2 parks would be the 2 that we've targeted, because that's where our baseball diamonds are and our soccer pitches are. And I think this is year 3 now that we've put some dollars in the budget for new bleachers. It's a health and safety issue where the old wooden bleachers are just not safe anymore. So we've been, as I said, putting dollars in the budget to do that replacement over the last few years. I think this $15,000 might get us to the end this year.
Thank you. And the South Gore Diamond, the sandblasting and painting, was that the one that was requested by the ball club?
Yes, it was requested by the Seaway Surge Baseball Association.
Okay, so that's new funding then? It wasn't a carryover, because I thought it was approved last year that we were going to go with that.
There was $15,000, but we've added another 15 to it.
Okay.
I think I don't believe that I'd have to check with our facility superintendent, but I'm not sure if the painting part of it was part of their original ask.
Okay.
But there was a reason that we added some dollars to that project.
Okay, thank you. And as Councillor Barkley asked regarding the old Maplewood or the old Oxford Mills townhouse or town hall, the question about maintenance on courthouse, that again would come under operation. And right now the only capital spend is fire alarms. And
that's correct.
Okay. And that's enough to keep it from deteriorating? I mean, the general maintenance that's in operating will carry forward for the year?
Yes.
Okay, good. I think those are my questions. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Councillor Strachan, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, the bleachers were my final question that I had. So Councillor Sullivan has asked. Thank you.
Okay. Mark, I do have one concern that I'd like to relay, and that is around the fate of a proposed play structure for the Stonehaven Glen Gables neighborhood. Of course, they approached us in 2019, and I understand it was slated for 2020. It got obviously postponed alongside so many other projects. And I don't see it here in 2021. I understand there's some logistical work to make that happen. I'm communicating some concern. I think that's a very, very large subdivision. There is passive green space already. I think there was some agreement that there was tremendous value in seeing if that passive green space could be complemented with a modest play structure that would allow, hopefully, kids to use that passive green space. Perhaps there were certainly younger children in a more active way, and be a bit of a gathering space outside. And I'm quite frankly reluctant to wait until 2022, given when they've asked for this particular amenity, which certainly seems modest in the context of the overall budget. Could you speak to that?
Sure. Yes, we realized that Parks and Rec staff realized that it was slated last year in the budget. We looked at all of our competing projects this year, and realizing that with installing new play equipment, we need to do some public consultation. How effective could we do that in this COVID world? Yes, we could probably do an online service or survey, but sometimes it's nice to get out and meet with the community face to face. It's a large park. We're thinking it's going to take a fairly large play structure and a large project to get that underway. And the other reasons were we have some fairly large or some very large projects this year to get done, notwithstanding the Riverside Park project that we just spoke of, the arena lighting project, the Maplewood Hall project, the new reception area. and the upgraded auditorium systems. They're all fairly large projects to get done. We're also this is going to be a transition year for the Parks and Rec Department, in that our facility superintendent, who's been with us for almost 35 years, is retiring in mid-June. So there's going to be a transition there, new staff coming in, a new person in that position, and just feeling like, how much can we, realistically get done? We've put the projects on the table here, to what we think we can get accomplished. I agree that the community has spoken, and I think it's having a play area out there with some play equipment would be super beneficial to that community. But that was sort of the reason behind seeing if we could put it off for another year. But I mean, I'm open to if council wishes to see it put back in the budget.
I would like to see the neighborhood engaged sooner rather than later. And could you clarify what the amount of spend was? I'd understood it was a $50,000 project.
I think we upped it to 75,000.
And it was carryover dollars, is that right? They were slated for 2020. Where are those dollars in this budget?
Yeah, I believe it was $75,000 that was put in the budget last year. I would have to look back to see if that was taken out of, if that was coming all out of reserves, or if it was tax related dollars that were raised. I believe it was
charges, right? It was a development charges drop, perhaps.
Yeah, I was just about to say that it was probably development charges.
Okay. So to that end, it would certainly, I'm testing the appetite of council here. I think that the consultation with the community, I think we're all doing these things virtually. I think some very productive conversation could be had sooner rather than later. And it is a COVID year where people are urgently looking for spaces and places to gather safely. So I believe that the dialogue should happen at a minimum, perhaps not the installation of the equipment, depending on what that consultation, produces. But I think it would be very meaningful to that community that they see that there is action, and it was council's appetite in 2020. And I certainly want them to understand that I think it remains our appetite. So I've got Deputy Mayor, Councillor Barclay, and Councillor O'Sullivan in the order I've seen the hands on the screen.
Okay, first off, Madam Mayor, I concur. I think this, there was, let's just say there was a promise and $1 put in the budget. The residents were expecting it. So I'd like to see how we can move ahead. I'm assuming when we have this kind of spend that it's not necessarily our employees that do it. Maybe I'm wrong. It's contracted out, but I don't know. Anyways, I think that conversation needs to keep going. So the last few questions I had for you, Director Guy, were this, you've got a water truck on there. I'm assuming that's for watering stuff or something. It seems 35,000 doesn't seem like a lot if this is a tanker, maybe it's a smaller vehicle. I'm not sure what that's for. That's the first one. And the second question I have, actually I had a third one, which was Glen Gable or the park, but the other question I have is on the auditory system within the theater and the meeting in the halls and whatnot. Did we talk to the people who are using our theater the most, some of these groups? And I know they had concerns with the system, and we knew that it was failing and or was not adequate. But have we consulted with these groups to discuss what type of equipment is needed or that makes sense for the type of programs and shows that they're putting on? Those are my two questions.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. The water truck is used for our downtown water baskets, that hanging baskets that are installed every year. That's how we water them. Our park staff water them. Same with any of the gardens and whatnot that are under the responsibility of the Parks and Rec Department. So in terms of why we require a new one is that the current water truck we have is a 2006 model. It needs new tires. The passenger door isn't working very well. There's holes in the floorboard, so it's becoming a real health and safety issue. So that's the reason that's in there, and that's the use, what we use it for. The auditorial assistants, upgraded auditorial assistants. Yes, we have spoken to members of the Arts and Culture Committee regarding this. Their biggest ask is the replacement of the speakers in the theater. So that's part of it. Part of those dollars would go towards that, as well as some other issues in halls A and B. And there's also some, and the Director of Legislative Services could speak to this, but there's some wants from the clerk's department in terms of devices for the hearing assistance that's not part of the theater right now. And the replacement of council microphones as well.
Thank you, Director Guy.
Okay, I have Councillor Barkley and then Councillor O'Sullivan.
Yeah, it's just back to the previous point about the Glen Gables. I'm calling it the Glen Gables Park.
That's what it's called.
Yeah, okay, great. Regarding the infrastructure, the actual play structure and consultation, what I'm hearing from staff, and I just need this confirmed by Director Guy, it's having the budget, having a line item budget isn't sufficient if it requires staff, because we're struggling with resourcing, staff resources in terms of the various projects we're trying to do, and there's some large ones this year. But and to, I guess, to Deputy Mayor's point, could could something like consultation be contracted out to a third party, and with some supervision by staff, but maybe not putting all the logistics together and collating all the responses and developing a report. Is that possible? So at least we can get some action on something that I think was promised quite a while ago, and there certainly is an expectation in the community for movement on developing that as a play space, as a park.
Your Worship, maybe I can step in there,
Okay.
if possible.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Dyke.
Yeah, I think, Councillor, you a lot of the comments were raised, and I think I said at the start, the resourcing of be able to resourcing the large capital projects is less so around things like doing the consultation process, or around the contract management and project management of the large scale projects, because it's not just doing one, as Mr. Guy pointed out, it's having 3 or 4 on that overlap over one period of time. That's kind of the resourcing we're talking about. Things around like public engagement and consultation piece, like that's the from our core element, our core resources. We would do that ourselves, because from a knowledge-based standpoint, it's more around on the more global than the contract is the contract and project management element of the large scale projects. And that's what we're trying to do an assessment over the course of this year as to what is our capacity, and then re-engage with council with respect to the prioritization over the course of this year going into 2020 on the larger projects. And then we can do a proper evaluation of what resources we need, be it on a contract basis, be it in addition to in-house resources, or what the case may be, as we move forward. And so that's kind of what we're getting at now. It's not that we're saying, oh, this project's too big for us to handle. It's on an aggregate basis, but also to make sure that on top of the capital projects, our operational work can still get done at the same time. So that's the assessment piece we're in right now. And that's what we're trying to get through 2021 with.
Okay, thanks for that. Just to follow up. So am I to understand that the consultation for developing Glen Gables Park is not possible because of all these other projects? Or are you saying that it can be done in-house and part of a work plan for this year?
Not real. What I'm saying is to add a project Glen Gables. I'm not saying we shouldn't add. I'm saying part of the assessment is how do we reassign work, or how do we reassign resources to accommodate the additional project being added in and still complete everything else? Or do we come back and say we should delay something, or whichever, make accommodations? It's part of the assessment process what we're looking at, right? So it's not a matter of we can't do it, is how do we do it within the resources we have to achieve the goals council setting for us.
So I guess what you're hearing is that council would like to see some movement on this project. So how to do it, I guess, is up to you.
That's up to us. That's correct.
Great. Okay, I'm going to go to Councillor Sullivan.
Thank you. So I guess we have the will and you find the way. Because I totally agree that this was an amenity that was promised to these people in 2019. And so I fully agree that we should go forward with it and for this year. So I don't know how, hopefully we don't have to cut out much, but I would really like to see us go forward with that at this time. And I think I also didn't see any place in the budget for picnic tables and benches. I think there are communities who are requesting picnic tables and park benches. So I didn't see anything in the budget at all for those. So I just wanted to see it.
Director Guy, can you speak to that? Is there an envelope, a funding envelope for benches or picnic tables?
We put those dollars in our parks maintenance line this year.
Okay. Okay. So you have some capacity to accommodate. Is that the case?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, great.
Great. Thank you. I thought so. I thought it was somewhere, but thanks.
Okay, Councillor Strakian, and then I've deferred my place to last. So Councillor Strakian, go ahead and then I'll add a final comment.
Okay, no problem. I mean, I think getting back to the Green Gables park area and a structure. So I think, you know, my memory is not great. But I think I did say that it would be, you know, good to have something in that space. I think as a I very age specific spaces like that. I think that you get to a certain point and kids are no longer interested in a play structure, but having something that accommodates a wider age range. And I know that may not be within scope for this park in particular, but I think as we go forward, because we're going to run into these kinds of situations again, where there's opportunities to, you know, add in issues of some sort. While the skate park is not for everybody, I look at that in Riverside Park as something that's very accommodating to a very wide range of ages. And I think it's been overall, it's very positive space for very young kids to mix with older teens and so on. And it covers a wide range, even with the bike park around. I think that going forward, maybe Green Gables winds up being a space where it gets expanded into something beyond a play structure in the years that follow. But having something that is accommodating to a wider age range, I think would be a really good use of municipal funds, as well as a great return on investment to allow for something within neighborhoods that give kids something to do. Kids and teens and whatnot. So just a general comment. It's not specific to this budget, but just wanted to make that point, put that point out there. Thank you.
And I think a lot of the newer parks actually can have that inclusivity from what I'm seeing in newer subdivisions and other communities. There is that capacity to anticipate and accommodate a wider age range, which is a great, I think, expenditure of public resources. So I'm going to go to Mr. Dyke here. I think you hear some appetite for there to be consultation. Councillor Sullivan, what I heard from Mr. Guy is the dollars for this particular park are largely from development charges that every builder and in turn, you know, buyers of those homes, you know, ostensibly paid to be in that area. There's a large passive green space. It's underutilized. We've had a tough year and we may have another one. So I do think that you're hearing, Mr. Dyke, some appetite to, if nothing else, engage in a very fulsome conversation. So at least we know how to proceed, and you know how to proceed. Given what I'm hearing is a feasibility study for Riverside Park and some additional work to prepare for an amenity in Riverside Park, or a set of amenities that may themselves not be built until 2022. It would just be unfortunate if we missed a window here, and I'm not sure we have. That's really up for you to determine.
I would take direction from council, your worship. If that's the direction of council, to include this project in the capital budget will be included, and we'll move forward.
Okay, I think you're hearing that. Okay, are there any other projects, council colleagues, that you wish to address? I had one final question, and that was around accessibility. I know that we, Councillor Sullivan, Deputy Mayor, a number of us have been engaged about accessibility obstacles in the arena, particularly when it came to wheelchairs, scooters, etc., and where they were positioned when it came to, I think, the only ice pad that is wheelchair accessible to some extent. I know, Mr. Guy, you were part of that conversation, and the Accessibility Committee and members of council have been asked, what is the status of any additional accessibility provisions when it comes to the ice pad, for which, there is that large spectator space? Has any of that been contemplated, not necessarily for this year, but in terms of looking longer term about how to make that, spectacle area, those stands, more accessible?
We haven't talked about it to too much length, Mayor Peckford.
Okay.
If it's council's wish for staff to dig a little deeper and research into that, then we'll certainly put that on our radar. And then I can provide an update or in the form of a report moving forward.
I do think we owe those with mobility impairments, often significant, some analysis, right, of what would it take. Obviously, without the information, there's no point having this conversation, but I do believe that we said on a number of occasions that we would ask staff to give us their best take on how to create more accessible spaces in that particular ice pad, where the 73s play, right, where there's often lots of different activities. So I do think it is our obligation to move forward with some analysis. So perhaps that's something that you need a critical path to kind of figure out what is involved. And not necessarily making the changes, but at least telling council what are the changes that would make that area far more accessible than it currently is.
Sure, and I'm pretty sure our facility superintendent did have an initial conversation with an engineering firm. So we can probably reach out to them again and have that initial discussion.
I think that would be very helpful in some sense of numbers, or again, what the accommodations would be, whether or not they're, fiscally sustainable is a whole other piece, but I think we need to know what the information is in this calendar year.
Sounds good.
Okay. And then finally, Councillor Barkley and I were on the receiving end. I think it was Councillor Barkley, if I'm not mistaken, through the Oxford Mills Community Association, of a request around accommodating an additional boat launch at the end of Beach Road. And again, this is something where we did follow up in a communication with you. I know that you responded by saying that you felt it was in keeping with the work plan. Again, whether or not it's 2021 is not my question, but my request of you this evening, based upon the considerable enthusiasm for our waterways and additional boat launches, is how can council receive information about how that request can be accommodated, moving forward. I don't think we want to lose sight of this. This is something that matters to a very large rural hamlet that is very proud to be part of North Granville and is very eager to see an additional boat launch in the community.
Well, when that project was sort of going on the last couple of years, I didn't have a lot of involvement. It was really through the planning department, but I know there was some, Mark Nadeau from Oxford Mills Community Association had some more than one discussion with the Rideau Valley Conservation Authority. I know that Director Dunlop reached out to Jamie Batchelor from RVCA a week ago to try and get some information where that project was left. I don't believe we've got any response yet from Jamie on that. And I did get Mark Nadeau and I did exchange some emails, but we're going to set up a discussion to talk about it and see how we can move forward. I know through the Parks and Rec master plan, and I believe I did mention this in the emails, they suggested recommended a waterfront access strategy should be undertaken by the municipality. to look at all ways that we can connect people better to our waterways, whether it's through boat launches and that sort of thing. And I really think something like that can be done in-house with the staff that we have, the economic development staff and our planning staff, along with Parks and Rec staff. I don't think that's a strategy that necessarily has to be projected out to a consultant. I think that's something we can do, and then we can deal with these types of requests through the strategy as opposed to one-offs. However, as I said, I'll reach out to we'll try and get some more information from Jamie Batzer where that project sort of was at the time, and move forward from there. And I can provide council an update once I get some more information.
That's great. And maybe it's part of the 2022 horizon, not the 2021, but I think the community engagement is very worthwhile. So we appreciate you doing it. I think the residents in question felt they had hit a roadblock, and the municipality might be a better navigator of the complexities of conservation authorities and other considerations when it comes to things like boat launches. So we appreciate your efforts there. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Anything else, colleagues? I know Parks and Rec is always one of our favorite topics, so lots of conversation. Anything else to bring to Mr. Guy's attention here? I don't see anything. Oh, Deputy Mayor, go ahead. And then I'm moving on.
Just again, this is a building question, Director Guy. Project descriptions, you got courthouse/fire alarms, 30 grand. Are we talking 30 grand just for fire alarms, or is there something else happening with the courthouse on those dollars?
No, just for the fire alarm. Just the fire alarm.
Okay.
Why is it 30,000? I think that's our question.
A lot.
That is the quote that our facility superintendent received.
So we must be talking about a sprinkler system. Is that what we mean?
It's that, plus it's an actual alarm that would be executed if there was a fire in the facility.
Okay, so
right now we have a phase 1 system, and we require a phase 2 system. There's annual inspections done every year by our 411, which is our fire alarm company that we have in place. If they detect something, a phone call comes in to Mr. Henry. Every year they come in, do inspections, and for whatever reason this year, different inspector came in and said, you haven't got the right system in here. You need a phase 2 system, not a phase 1 system.
Okay, but this is just an alarm system. This is not a sprinkler system.
Did I say it was a sprinkler system?
The mayor mentioned a sprinkler system.
Oh, sorry. No, you're right. Sorry.
Much more cost. Okay.
Yeah. No.
Alarm system. Okay.
Yeah. So there appears to be, we're a bit confused as to why all of a sudden we need a phase 2 when the phase 1 was always seemed to be fine. So, but we're being told that's what we require now, is a phase 2.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, so apologies, Deputy Mayor. I was speculating. So take that off the table. Mr. Guy didn't say sprinkler system, but I think
I might have misspoke there. I'm sorry.
It's all okay.
Okay. And so I don't see any other questions. Colleagues, I am not suggesting a break because I'm sensing we may be near the end, but I'm going to move on with no objections from council and see if we can get to the capital projects for other departments. And we'll assess where things are at in about 10 or 15 minutes. And I believe it's back over to you, Mr. Brookman, in terms of moving these things along.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We'll move on to the next slide, please. So this next slide is a summarization of all the other capital projects, the largest, of course, being emergency and protective services, which Chief Oakham can speak to. And then for fleet and equipment and other capital projects, if there are any questions, then the capital projects to whom they correspond, the corresponding director can then answer those questions. So maybe I'll pass it over to Chief Oakham, and he can start with his discussion of the Tanker 1 truck. Thank you, Mr. Brookman. Good evening, Council. So I can go through this fairly quickly. At the top of the list is for emergency protective services is carryover projects. The first one on the list identified as Tanker 1 truck. That's a replacement of the existing tanker truck, which will be 21 years old this year. That vehicle was slated to be replaced in 2020. That was deferred due to the COVID funding requirements. So we've placed it back onto the list for this year to be completed. And that's for a 12,000 liter water tanker. The second item was exterior lights for the fire station building. This is very similar to what Director Guy was mentioning about the municipal center facility. However, this is just exterior lighting for the fire station. It's the parking lot lamps and exterior building lights. There's no interior lights in this project. And it would be for the LED style lighting. That was also a last year 2020 project, but it also was deferred due to the COVID funding. And the third item is preliminary work for fire station number 2. That's for design, cost estimating, and conceptual drawings for the station 2 in Oxford Mills. Under fleet and equipment, we have bylaw secondary vehicle. We are looking at a second vehicle, a smaller vehicle. Right now we use a repurposed fire duty vehicle for bylaws. So this will be a smaller, more economical vehicle, a car. We're looking at rebranding to make bylaw identifiable in the public. The small vehicle will be used for patrolling and investigations, also trips to the Brockville court. The other capital projects, we have lumped a number of pieces of equipment into operational equipment. That's replacement of equipment of aging or damaged equipment or tools, fire hose, for example, saws, etc. The next item is protective gear for firefighters. We have approximately 43 volunteer firefighters, and we have to equip them with personal protective equipment. And all protective equipment is good for 10 years shelf life and must be replaced for structural firefighting. And we have that spread out over the 10 years. So the $19,000 cost is to replace only those that have come due to be replaced. Also, we have protective wear for the bylaw officers. And lastly, we have, we're referring to tough books for bylaw services. We're looking at an online case management system for bylaw services. It serves as a public interface. It also provides a workflow so that we can assign officers and follow up on complaints. And it provides online recording, and that would also cover the purchase of mobile devices, a tablet-style product for them to use while they're out and about in the community. And that's the list of projects under EPS.
I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Deputy Mayor.
Or maybe it's a comment, or maybe it's a question to Gary. Is Chief Oakham allowed to be out of uniform? I've never seen this before.
I was thinking the same thing, Deputy Mayor. We'll address that accordingly.
Prepare to receive new direction, Chief Oakham. Any other comments? Obviously, all very worthwhile projects, and it's probably worth stating once again, we have a largely volunteer fire force, firefighting team that endeavor to keep North Granville residents and businesses safe each and every day. Obviously, you need the equipment required to do the job. I have Councillor Barkley, whose hand did I see? I'm sorry. Councillor O'Sullivan, and I don't know Councillor Strakian as the liaison, if you wish to make additional comment. So Councillor O'Sullivan, go ahead.
Thank you, and thanks for the report, Chief Oakham. I just have a question about bicycles. I was under the impression that the bylaw people were going to be using bikes to monitor or patrol on some of the trails during the summer. Was that, did I misunderstand that, or is there a need to have bicycles for bylaw in your budget?
Yes, Councillor O'Sullivan, that's a good question. And the quick answer to that is in 2020, we did make a purchase for 2 bicycles and safety equipment for officers to do patrolling on trails, as you had mentioned. Unfortunately, due to COVID, stock for bicycles was out, and so we have our name down for 2 bicycles. I understand our purchase order, they're due to be shipped at the end of April this year, so hopefully in time for springtime. So they have been budgeted, they have been ordered, just awaiting delivery for 2021.
Great. Okay. Thanks very much for that.
Okay. Any other questions? Seeing nothing on EPS, Councillor Strakian, I assume you're not stepping in here? Okay.
No, I don't have any other questions. I think I've had this conversation a few times with Chief Oakham.
Good. Okay. Then, Mr. Brookman, I think we're on to the other capital projects outside of EPS, and that would be finance and treasury and ECDEV, as well as administration.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So I can certainly speak to the first point, which is the financial planning budgeting software. As I've been referring to throughout our conversation through improving and modernizing our processes, having a financial planning and budgeting software is instrumental to that. I've done some research, and the estimated project cost for that is $80,000. As for the remaining, I would have to defer to any of the other directors in order to speak to any questions around economic development.
Yep, that's no problem, Mr. Brookman. I'm going to go to Mr. Dyke. I think he's overseeing ECDEV right now, if I'm not mistaken. Mr. Dyke? Mr. Dyke is not in a position to speak. I think he's struggling with internet at the present time. Is anyone else wanting to hear from someone on ECDEV? We've got Hamlet banners, municipal directional signs, TODs, all of which are worthy and fairly modest expenditures, as well as an administrative expense for Escape.
Nancy?
Yeah.
The only question I would have is something along the lines of the signs. If you remember last year, we had a meeting. They brought a sign to us. I don't think it was, maybe it was a Todd sign, but they brought the sign to us. And of course, the graphics and the lettering and everything did not fit in to what our normal signs would look like. So we kind of rejected that. So I don't know where that stands. It may be in this, it may not be in this, these line items for budget, but it does pique my mind that I don't know whatever happened to that entry sign that was going to be put out on the 416.
Yes. Okay.
Thank
I'm going to go to
Your Worship, I'm back here. I apologize for been cutting in and out all evening. So the economic development pieces, and I will confer as Mr. Gilmore on this. So these were projects that have been previously identified as desirable elements by community groups as well as council itself, particularly the banner signs for the hamlets, the directional signs and the Todd signs. Yes, that program is moving forward. That is the project with respect to that council did have some comments on with respect to design. And that has been undertaken, that redesign is undertaken, but I'll have to confer with Mr. Gilmore as to the timing and where we're at with that program with respect to the overall design of the project itself. I'll ensure that council gets a look at them before we move forward on the design and those signs as well, as best we can.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Barkley.
Thank you. I have a question, but first, a little bit of information. I've been in contact with the BIA regarding the two downtown Kemptville directional signs that the BIA found the funding for in 2016, I believe. They're in need of a refresh, but given that COVID is upon us and we're trying to get some information out through our business support programs, the #LoveNG. I've spoken to both the executive director and the chair of the BIA, and they'd be willing to have those signs repurposed in the short term, rather than simply refreshing them with the graphic. And these are two signs, one eastbound and one westbound on County Road 43. They're quite large. They're 8 by 16 feet or something along those lines. So I will contact Mr. Gilmer and talk to him about if there's any use that the municipality can use of those two signs prior to them getting refreshed. My question is about the last item in the budget, and that's it's listed under administration, Ford Escape. It's rather detailed price there. I'm just wondering how administration is going to use a red all-wheel drive Ford Escape, and what's the purpose of that?
So I can speak to that, Madam Mayor.
Sure.
So it's my understanding that that there's a general purpose vehicle. So this is it's been put in as administration. We had an older vehicle that's just basically worn out for just running errands, everything that's required for running the municipality main office. That's been available for a number of years and is used for that purposes, rather than people jumping in their personal vehicles and doing tasks.
So that'll be branded as a North Grenville vehicle. Is that my understanding?
Correct.
Okay.
So
Councillor Sullivan, I'm having difficulty turning on my camera for some reason. My computer's having a little meltdown here, but my audio is still on. So go ahead, Councillor Sullivan.
okay, thank you. Just a quick question to follow up on the Ford Escape. I gather that the estimation that this would be a more economical way than having staff use their own vehicles and charge back mileage at the applicable rate that's available through the budget.
Correct. So,
Okay.
so the and there's also the insurance side of it. There's a number of factors that that lend itself to having a vehicle available for general purpose use.
So would this be a vehicle that would be available, like if any of us needed to drive to somewhere within the county, that carpooling, I mean, COVID aside, that could be something that could be used by senior management council if they needed to go places?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why not.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Sullivan, I think that certainly has been made available as an option in the past. So I think if that's something that you need to avail of, you should just be speaking with Mr. Brookman moving forward. Mr. Brookman, I don't believe there are any other questions in terms of the projects we see on this Appendix C. Council colleagues, are we good? Okay. So then, did we approve capital projects, water and waste water, or are these another piece for us to do this evening?
They are already approved, Madam Mayor.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So then we can set these aside. Is that correct?
Correct.
And then that would bring us to, I think, ostensibly the end of this discussion when it comes to the capital expenditures for the municipality of North Grenville in 2021.
Correct. Would you like me to?
I'm sorry, Mr. Brookman, go ahead.
So I just wanted to summarize, if I may,
Yes.
what I've gathered through this discussion. For For Public Works, we are going to remove Concession Road, Prescott to Rail Trail for $72,000 and a little bit of change. We are going to add the multi-use path, which is mainly to George, if I'm saying that correctly. I apologize, I don't know all the streets. We're going to add the sidewalk, George Street, Oxford to Pine Hill for $66,000 for a net change of $9,000. And for Parks and Recreation, we're going to add the $75,000 for Glen Gables. Is that correct?
I believe that is in fact correct, yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
And I think there was other direction provided in terms of pursuing some other projects that are of significant interest to council, but I don't think you're receiving direction this evening to implement them in 2021, but certainly to provide comprehensive information to council in this calendar year about how they could be done. And I would expect some of them will likely be part of our 2022 budget discussion. Council colleagues, was anything missed? Okay. So I'll look to Ms. Babcock-Creamery then to take us through the next steps. I'm just calling up my agenda.
So there's a resolution, Madam Mayor, that council receive and approve the 2021 capital budget. And that would be subject to those matters that Mr. Brookman just summarized.
Great. I'll look for a mover for that, please. I have Councillor Sullivan and Deputy Mayor. Thank you very much.
Your worship, just for clarification, just so when we're done, the motion will include those specific modifications in the motion. So when you see it in the minutes, it will actually have those modifications referenced in the minutes in the motion.
Yes. Perfect. Appreciate that very much. Thank you. I'm going to call a question on
just
yes.
one clarification with the amendments.
Go ahead.
It was my understanding that we were going to look at consultation regarding Glen Gables Park, not necessarily put in the full $75,000 to cover the installation this year.
$75,000, as I understand it, has been set aside through development charges. The money exists. It's the
Okay,
how.
great.
And I think Mr. Guy and his department are going to see how far they can take it.
That's right.
Thank you.
And I think council has expressed a desire to see if it can get done this year. And if it can, we'll be overjoyed. But the conversations have to start at a minimum.
Yep.
All the way to installation.
Yep. We'll move the project forward.
Thank you, Mr. Guy. Okay. Any other questions? I apologize for not asking for further comment before I call the question. Any other comments or questions, council colleagues? Seeing none, I'm calling the question. All in favor, please. Councillor Strachan, are you with us? Okay. I think your internet might be lagging a bit.
Oh, yes, I'm here. If you can hear me, I'm in favor of this.
I understand half of or a section of North Granville got its invitation for Starlink this evening for some trial run.
I think
collective rejoicing.
Yeah, I think we've proven this evening that we could all use a little boost on that front. So
look forward to seeing how that goes. Okay, so council, congratulations, staff. You have a capital budget. Appreciate all the good conversation. And now we'll move to our to the other items on the agenda. Minutes of previous meetings. There are none. Reports from the Office of the CAO, none. We've dealt with the capital budget. There are no other items to address this evening. I look to colleagues. Are there any notice of motions? Taking a second. Seeing none. There is no correspondence to deal with this evening. No informational reports. We just have a confirmation bylaw and a resolution to adjourn. And I think before I do that, I'll make it clear this evening that by virtue of adopting the capital budget, as we have, council accepts, endorses, I think wholeheartedly, what will be a 0% tax rate increase for 2021. Mr. Dyke, can you confirm that?
That's correct, Your Worship.
Okay. And thank you very much to council colleagues and to staff for working within that goal. It was certainly a worthy one, and I hope and trust that the residents and businesses of North Granville will embrace the gesture, if you will, given the year it's been and the year it may be again. So we'll look to that confirmation bylaw. Councillor O'Sullivan?
Just before, I would happily move that, but just before I do that, I would just like to give a shout out to Director Guy, Director Dunlop, and Chief Oakham for all of the work done by their departments to move forward with the outdoor rink at Curry Park. And given the cold nights that we're having right now, it's I went there today. It's looking awesome, and I think it's going to be a wonderful asset for the community. And a big shout out to Herb Kluche, who spearheaded it and got it rolling. And he had the idea, we had the will, and the departments have all found the way to make it happen. So true appreciation from a lot of happy residents. So thanks a lot.
And Your Worship, we actually have 2 members of the media in attendance. Item number N is.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. Thank you. Of course, I'm more than happy to recognize members of the media that have been with us this evening. I apologize to you both. Of course, we're always happy to take questions from the media or members of the public. So looking to Paulina and Hillary, anything you'd like to ask this evening?
Yeah, I have just one question. I was just going to ask Director Dunlop, what's the total cost for the Wellington Road reconstruction? I know it was kind of like spattered in the budget, so I just wanted to know what the total amount was with underground services and road repaving and all that stuff.
For the construction side, it's $1.950 million, so it's $1,950,000. That includes the water and sewer component, but does not include the little over 100,000 for project management and contract admin.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions from members of the media? Seeing none, not hearing anything, then I will move on to confirmation bylaw. And Ms. Babcock-Cormier, if you could read that, that would be appreciated.
I can. Sorry, one moment. That bylaw 10-21 to confirm the proceedings of council at its special meeting held on February 8th, 2021 be adopted and passed.
I'll move that.
And Councillor Strachan will second. Thank you. Councillor Sullivan and Councillor Strachan. Thank you. I'll call the question. All in favor of confirming tonight's proceedings? Thank you. And now I'll look to a motion to adjourn. Deputy Mayor and Councillor Barkley, would you like to move? And second adjournment, very close to what we might have anticipated, and that is a 9:01 p.m. adjournment. I'll call the question on that. All in favor, please. Thank you. Good work, staff. Good work, council. I hope you have a great evening, and we'll see you on the canal on the weekend, if not before. Take care.
Thank you, Brad and Gary. You did a great job. Appreciate it.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Have a good night.
All the best.
Thank you.